Afternoon. Quick recap on Saturday. Thought we got off to a great start. Our guys had a lot of energy. We're excited playing for our seniors last home game. And, obviously, one of the things we had emphasized, taking the football away. Got a big interception early on, strip, fumble, block PAT, resulted in 12 points, and then able to capitalize and get off to a great start. That was really good. I think, what we have to do better, obviously, and in most instances is, continue to play with that kind of energy, but probably dial it in a little bit better in terms of fundamentals and technique. I really like the energy. I really like the effort is great. We're getting great effort from our team. Just got to dial in the fundamentals and technique a little bit. So that's a good problem to have in November. And so we'll work on that. Turning the page now to Syracuse. Dino Baber's done a great job. Two seasons into his third season, his first 2 seasons, he's building it. And I think what he's done here is this is somebody that has had success as a head coach, and you can see that starting to show itself in his third year. And that is a consistency in his approach and player development. They haven't changed who they are. They are who they are. They've stayed the course. They've had to avoid the noise of, is this going to work? And they've developed their players. This is a team that we saw in 16. A lot of similar players from 16. They're just better. They're better on the offensive line. They're better on the defensive line. The quarterback, obviously, is a veteran player that has seen it all. And a lot of the credit goes to Dino Babers for building the program up to where it is, and they deserve to be where they are. And he's got some good players that have stayed with it. The offensive line, as I mentioned, is a veteran group. He's got 4 guys there that are, 4-year starters for him, so they're playing well together. They know the scheme. They know what's expected of them. And because of that, are very familiar with what's going on. 4-year starter with Dungy, he's a guy that, does a lot of great things for him. Not only does he run the offense, he's fearless. The guy's fearless as a player. He's big, he's strong. Play breaks down, he's going to run. And certainly can throw the football extremely well. It's, again, a 4-year starter who's seen it all. He's got great intangibles, great leadership. I think one of the things they've done really well is they've upgraded at the running back position to the level where they've got some home run threats. Moneill, Strickland, big downhill guy, really have done a nice job there. They've got a tight end now that can help them in the running game. He's got some talent now to surround Dungy. And the receivers have always been, they lost, obviously 2 very good players from last year. But, Sean Riley, he reminds me of Greg Dortch at Wake Forest, great speed, and is a home run guy in special teams and when he touches the football. Custis is a great matchup guy. I think he's 17 yards per catch of the notes that I have here. And Taj Harris is a 6'3" guy. So plenty of players to surround Dungy and an offensive line that's veteran. They do what they do. They do it really well. They're like the triple option, right? You try to come up with a scheme against it. They've seen it. So you better be fundamentally sound. You better do what you do really well because they're going to do what they do. So they're doing a great job. They're averaging 44 points a game. So they've done a nice job there. From a defensive standpoint, we've seen difference in this defense in a very, very short period of time. and it starts with the defensive ends. Two guys that can legitimately, come off the edge and rush the passer, and then an inside guy in Slayton that does a really good job with his hands, gets off blocks. But, Robinson and Coleman are two edge players that, force you to pay attention to them. So they've done a really nice job of upgrading the athleticism off the edge of their defense. And then, Slayton's development, who's out of Crete-Moni, who we know about, is a really nice player. Linebackers are young, but they're playing very well. I think Guthrie at the mic is, plays downhill, extremely athletic. They lost a lot of linebackers last year, but, a group that's emerging. And in the secondary, again, they played a lot of guys back there. Frederick is a really good boundary corner. They can play man-to-man. And, we've got a lot of depth back there. So it'll be a great challenge. The special teams is going to be huge. As I mentioned, they've got great kickers. Both the punter and kicker are as good as that we're going to see. And then, of course, Riley is a guy that can, as I mentioned, he's a lot like Dortch in terms of he can open up the game in special teams. So you better be on it in terms of special teams, offense and defense. And, they deserve to be where they are, one of the top 10, 12 in the country, and they've certainly earned that. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Brian, Syracuse is the fourth team in the top 8 in terms of offensive plays run per game that you've played this year. What have you learned from the others, and maybe what makes Syracuse different challenge than playing Northwestern, Ball State, Wake?
Well, from a scheme, they're different than those other teams. Tempo, I think Wake was faster. So we're used to, we have a system in place to handle the tempo. But, tempo is still something that you have to practice and be on top of. They do a good job with their cadence, trying to get you offside, which gives them a lot of free shots. So you've got to be disciplined. You got to have great communication, at all 3 levels. So it's certainly something that you have to be disciplined and on top of. But we've played tempo teams, so that's not going to be a reason why they win the football game. It can be a reason why we give up big plays if we're not on top of things. Their scheme is different. That would be the biggest difference.
In terms of the new redshirt rule, has that worked out kind of the way you hoped, the way you thought? And there's guys that haven't played a single game for you, and it would seem like the urgency of these games now makes it difficult to get them into games. Am I kind of overlooking somebody that might be able to get in?
No, I think you're right on. I think we had it tiered into 3 categories. Those guys that were ready to play and were going to play anyway. Those guys that we were trying to keep them no more than 4, and those that wouldn't play. And I think we probably, we've hit those. We're at the max on, a few offensive linemen that are at 4 that, you won't see again. And that we're, we've got a game or 2 on some guys, for Djokovic, for example, he's still, he's got a couple of games left. So I think you're right. I think we've hit them in those 3 categories that we kind of, talked about earlier in the season.
I'm curious about your evaluation of Banks and Eichenberg, kind of as the chemistry there and what you're seeing from them in each successive game as they move forward together.
Well, as a unit, 5 guys working together is our best game. And that has to do certainly with those guys feeling so much more comfortable with their calls. Sam's running the show there. He's been outstanding, holding them to a high standard. He's been really, really good for those young guys. So having Banks right next to him there has been really good to, to get him on the same page. We saw a really marked improvement in just the combination blocking from Northwestern to Florida State. So we're making progress there. We like the way we're moving as a group, as 5 guys working together. So, yes, the answer would be as they play together and get more comfortable, we're seeing the returns.
Last one from me with Myron. Does it still look like you might be able to get him on the field, get a look at him in practice next week?
No, we'll condition him next week. He won't be ready to play for USC. He'll be ready to condition, get back in football-related activities, but he'll be postseason.
Brian, to your left. This somewhat goes back to tempo, but they have a pretty balanced offense you're facing. Does it kind of put you in a position where you have to choose nickel or base going out to start a series? Because obviously you've been pretty successful with your changes and line changes, but is their ability to run in tempo the biggest issue they cause for defenses?
Yeah, so when you say balance, it's the ability to run it as equally as well as throw it. And, you know, they're going to work off how you align defensively. Yeah, so you have to have a fundamentally designed way of how you're going to play, and then go to work off it from there. So if you line up in base, you know what they're going to attack. If you line up in nickel, you know how they're going to attack you. So you've got to go from that and then be able to support the potential weaknesses from one or the other.
And on the other side of the ball, when they play well defensively, it's interesting. They're really good on third down defensively and sacking the quarterback, but struggle a little bit against the run. Those don't seem to usually go together. Usually if you're stopping the run is why you're good on third down. What do you see when they're really playing their best defense at Syracuse?
Taking the ball away. Extremely opportunistic this year. So, you know, I think they've come up with some big turnovers. Their third down scheme is pretty good. They force you to be precise in terms of throwing the football. You know, they employ a pretty good third down package. It covers the field really well, so you've got to be precise. I think fundamentally sound would be, for me, the best way to describe their third down package, and that they force you to execute. Yeah.
Brian, over here. 2 questions for you. One, what makes you a better football team this November than last November, in your mind?
You know, I think one way to look at it is the same 11 guys that started against Michigan on defense are the same 11 guys we're rolling out against Syracuse. There's a good start right there. You know, offensively, you know, we've been able to add pieces to the offense, and, you know, we've lost a really good player in Alex Barros, but we seem to be growing, you know, on the offensive line. So, you know, you're adding pieces as the season goes, and I think everybody would want to say, how do you play better in November? Stay healthy, you know, stay healthy. Who wouldn't want to be back in September when you're feeling great and you're 100% and, you know, you're fresh? So I think health has a lot to do with it. Our guys are in a good spot when it comes to their health, and we've taken, you know, great pains to make sure that the recovery process has been a point of emphasis this year.
When you looked at the schedule and the way the season ended this year, with all the travel and across the country and all that frequent flyer miles and everything, how do you think you've managed that? What things did you do to try to manage that, looking at it? And specifically this week, when you go to New York, do you plan to practice here, or do you plan to fly out early and maybe get a look at Yankee Stadium, since it's a different kind of surface that you'll be playing on?
Yeah, all year we have avoided any unwanted travel, extra travel. We have not visited stadiums. We've gone right to the hotel. We've changed up that routine, which saves us a good hour, gives us about another hour or so at the hotel to rest, stretch, nutrition, recovery. We won't do that in New York. It's just, again, it's been part of a long-range plan on how we wanted to handle travel throughout the course of the entire year, starting with going to San Diego and staying on an Eastern Standard clock and coming back and staying an extra day. And it's really residual of all of that leading up through going to LA next week. So a little bit of a change of schedule throughout the whole thing. We'll practice here on Friday, and then head to New York.
Isn't the Yankee Stadium different though with the no,
Yeah, there's no crown there, grass field. You know, we've played enough on grass, so we're not too concerned about that. Yes, sir.
Brian, when the safety struggled as they did last year, and really in maybe years prior to that, we tend to hear more about the difficulty of playing the safety position, all the decisions that you have to make. When you're playing well like you are at safety this year, we don't hear much about that. Is that just Jalen Elliott experience and developing and Alohi Gilman being a good football player, or have you made some adjustments back there in terms of how it's taught? I know Terry Joseph is new to the equation as well.
Yeah, you know, I think, you know, teaching is really important. I think Terry does a great job. So, you know, and this isn't to say that Mike Elko, who was coaching the safeties last year, did a poor job with the safeties, because I think we all respect Mike Elko and the work that he does. So that's not about that. The teaching is excellent. The coaching is right on. But this is really about experience and maturity for a guy like Jalen Elliott. And we saw that coming along. It takes time, and we've seen him develop. Alohi Gilman was a talented player that played as a freshman, and we knew that he had the ability to come in and be a plug-and-play player right away. So I think that that's probably more to it than anything else, player development over a period of time and living with that, you know, over a period of time and some of the bruises that come with it. And then Alohi Gilman, who just can step in and play. You know, we've seen, you know, I thought Nick Coleman had his best game of the year. You know, obviously made a lot of really good plays. That's a guy who had a lot of plays last year for us. And, you know, we stepped up and played. So there's a lot of guys that played a lot of football that are starting to step in, and we're seeing that investment, if you will, from last year where we weren't talking about making a lot of plays.
Is there anything in the way Coach Joseph teaches the position or communicates the knowledge to them that would have made a significant difference?
Well, you know, when you have your own coach, there's certainly a little bit more to that, right? Where that individual time is coaching one-on-one. Mike was coaching the whole defense. Right. So, you know, again, that tends to help, you know, break guys through as well and build depth with the group.
We're going to have an opportunity to talk to Kurt Haining for the first time this season tomorrow. I mean, that's a guy that I'm not really asking a question here. I guess I'm making a statement. He had difficulty getting off blocks last year, and he has come so far and penetrates like, I mean, he's a nose tackle, but he penetrates like a 3 technique. Yeah. What has allowed him to do that? Yeah,
probably the one guy that's kind of, you know, I don't know what the right phrase is, flown under the radar, not gotten the kind of recognition, whatever, that's great. He's played really well this year. He's been a consistent performer. He's stronger physically. His endurance and his ability to go longer has impacted what we do and how he does it. And, you know, his ability to take coaching. He had a weakness there, and his ability to shed blocking, and he worked on it, and Coach Elston is great at teaching it, and we're seeing that, you know, come to fruition this year.
He's got a pretty good motor, too.
He's got a great motor. He never stops, both on and off the field.
Thank you.
Brian over here. When you watch Dungy, when you're studying the film, what sort of concerns you the most when you're trying to game plan for him?
The intangibles. You know, when you have a guy that is fearless and has that kind of toughness, he's going to do whatever he needs to do to find a way to make something happen. You know, he's not a guy that's going to make poor decisions. He'll try to make a play here or there, but you know, he's 225 pounds. I mean, he's a big kid too. So, you know, I'll give you an example. It's 3rd and 3, or 3rd and 4 on a zone read, and he keeps it, and there's a guy standing right there. You catch and tackle him, he's going to fall forward for 4 yards. He's just a tough guy, and you know, that toughness kind of, envelops that entire offense. It's not a finesse spread offense. There's a toughness to it, and I think it comes from him.
And Dexter Williams, if you had to, one factor or a couple factors that have led to his improvement, what would it be?
Oh, well, I mean, we could list a number of them, but I would say just growing up in his maturity, ownership, and being accountable and responsible.
Brian, center field here. How was Ian Book in practice yesterday?
How was he in terms of what?
Physically and with his performance as well.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't out on the field practicing. He had his own workouts yesterday, but he felt good, and he went through all of the workouts, threw the ball. He was in the weight room, and we'll practice today for the first time.
Alize Mack, you talked about player development, and here's a young man that has obviously made 2 tremendous catches on Saturday night. Where have you seen the growth with him, both on and off the field?
Yeah, well, consistency and approach in everything that he does, from waking up in the morning to going to class, to meetings, to practice. Just a consistency, and proud of his development as a young man in all facets, and it's showing itself on the field. I knew it would. It's just it takes time for some guys. They develop later than others. Everybody wants them to be there right away. We do. Fans do, but some guys take longer than others when they're between the ages of 18 and 22 years old, and you just sometimes don't know when that happens. But the great thing about it for him is he stuck with it. When there were low points, when he could have walked away, he knew he shouldn't have, and he hung in there, and all the credit goes to him.
How have you learned to deal with the frustration as a coach of watching a young man go through that and knowing he could be much better than what he was?
I don't know that I got frustrated. I think maybe early in my career I would be frustrated. I don't think frustrated is a word I use anymore. Maybe what I do is I try to help others not get frustrated, and enlighten them into the sense that this is part of the process. Hang in there. I try to use the word "yet" a lot. Y-E-T is a good word. They're not there yet, but they'll get there.
Finally, as a Red Sox fan, when you walk into Yankee Stadium on Saturday, what thoughts will you have?
We beat them at Yankee Stadium, Has nothing to do with the football game, though. We already got that trophy. That's put away. Great respect for the Yankees and the tradition. That's why both these programs mirror each other so well. Great tradition, championships. That's why we're excited about being, at Yankee Stadium.
Coach, we've seen Khalid Kareem on the field and just what a great season he's having, but how about him just off the field, his character and his personality?
Again, another guy that it's been fun watching him grow and mature since his time here. They're all young and they make mistakes, but they learn from them, they grow from them, and he would be not unlike a lot of other guys here that has benefited from his time in this program and being here at Notre Dame. He's done well in the classroom, has benefited from his time here at Notre Dame, and he's done great things in the weight room, redefined who he is as a football player because of the hard work that he has done in the weight room.
And then just to go back to Ian Book, but do you need to evaluate him this week, see what he does at practice to decide whether or not he's available for Syracuse? Not
really. I think we're pretty clear that he's ready to play.
Brian, I wanted to ask about the New York, New Jersey area as a recruiting base over the years, the importance of it, and then the whole Subway alumni concept. How much does that still help when you go into homes there?
Oh, it's real. It's when we talk about Subway alums, I mean, your first thought is, New York City, New Jersey, but it's everywhere, obviously, those that love Notre Dame and have never been here. I do one event out there a year, and one is in Staten Island, a huge alumni club in Staten Island. And I remember doing it a few years back, and we were doing a poll, raise your hand, how many Notre Dame graduates were in the room. There was 250, maybe 300, and I think there were maybe a half dozen Notre Dame grads in the room. And it just goes to show the support for the university and for the values of Notre Dame, especially in places like Staten Island and New York City and Jersey City and all the areas that have been staunch supporters, but also pretty good football in that area as well. So it helps us in recruiting too.
One of those guys is Brandon Wimbush. When you look back at his legacy when it's all done, how much will the way he handled that disappointment and that time after the demotion factor in? How much should it factor in? And how rare do you think it is for a senior to take it as well as he did?
Well, you know, I think there'll be time to write about it. I think he would like this to be much more about there's more to the story, and it's let's not write the obituary yet. I just think that everything that he's done leading up to last week was indicative of who he is. So I don't know that anybody really should be surprised. Because he's been really consistent in who he is and everything that he does both on and off the field. I think that just becomes another chapter. But I just think that there's more to write here. I don't think it ends with last week. I think there's more exciting things coming from Brandon. Yeah.
You had referred earlier in the year when talking about Daelin Hayes that he, coming in as a five-star recruit, maybe he had some preconceived notions about I need to get this many sacks or that I need to make this many plays to live up to the reputation. But last couple of weeks, it's been more about just his consistency, it seems.
Yep.
Have you seen that development in him where it's not about always making the big plays, but enhancing everyone else?
Did you have a conversation with him, Lou? Is that what happened?
No, I did not.
Really?
No.
Because
I would not do that without Mike Birch's permission.
well, I'll tell you what, because that's what's happening. Exactly what you're talking about. He's become more focused on the details of the position and playing the game one play at a time, and we're seeing that pay off. He's playing really good football. Now, competition helps, and there's competition at that position. But I really think that Daelin has settled into a really good spot where his focus is, let me just be a really good football player and work my craft, and all that other stuff will take care of itself. So you're right on. You've nailed it. That's where he is, and he's in a good position, and we're getting good play because of it.
Is that difficult as a coach when you bring in somebody with that type of five-star reputation, whether it's Quentin or Daelin, to recognize that there's still a process to go through rather than just maybe come in and dominate right away?
Well, you know, I think that's your job, you know, to set that, you know, that standard within your program, that there is a process. And, you know, if you don't follow that process, that, you know, it can, you know, derail what your goals and dreams are. So Daelin wants to play. Daelin wants to be on the field. Daelin knows that if he sticks with our process, he's going to play a lot of football, and he's seen that the last couple of weeks.
You've had a number of standout freshmen All-Americans, Aaron Lynch, Kavari Russell, Jalen Smith, Robert Hainsey started last year. But in August, you mentioned how this is probably your strongest team, not just from 1 through 50, but 60 through 85. We don't see the freshman class necessarily in major roles, but how much has their overall collectively helped enhance the rest of the team to get to where you are now?
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's hard sometimes to, you know, put a number on, you know, who is saving reps for guys. But when you look at, you know, like last Saturday, Tariq Bracy, you know, the snaps that he played as a true freshman, you know, Kevin Austin, his ability to take some reps away from Myles Boykin and save his legs, and catch a pass or two or make an impact here and there. all those eventually add up when you take them in total. Paul Malala on special teams and being able to impact in that fashion. So it was important this year that we got contributions all the way down the line, deeper than just 40, 50 guys, and it seems that that's worked out pretty good.
How about just practice in itself, a scout team and everything?
Yeah, well,
just from their talent level and what they are able to do to help the top units.
Yeah, well, just having if you look at the running back situation, Jameer Smith, Sibo Fleminster, Lawrence Keys, Micah Jones, Tommy Tremble. These are all really, really skilled players that could be playing at a lot of Power 5 schools right now that are helping our defense. And you can see when we've been tested in pass coverage situations, these guys have really helped our defensive backs, by going against them. So, we're fortunate, that we have that, that we have those kinds of players and the depth that allows those guys to compete every day.
Brian, you've mentioned, you've mentioned Paul Malala's name quite a bit this year, and just in a reference, what do you think his future is, and what do you think, what kind of impact he can give you guys in years to come?
I think he'll be an impactful player. What position does he play eventually? You know how we roll here. I mean, he starts at the back end and maybe he gets closer to the line of scrimmage. Who knows? But, right now he's a safety that can play safety for us. And, but, he's a physical kid. He's done a great job in the weight room, and he's got a really good sense for football. The game comes pretty easy to him. So I think he's got a bright future here at Notre Dame.
And then what has Alex Barros given you since his injury off the field as a leader?
Well, his presence with some of the young guys has been really good. Sam's in there every day taking reps and fighting, fighting through that battle. Alex is with those younger guys, that second group, and he's with them as really a mentor, and he's going through the script with them. He's another coach on the field for us, doing a nice job with them.
And then looking back, obviously when this game was moved to New York, you weren't necessarily the biggest fan of that move. Now at 10-0, how much would you prefer this game being at Notre Dame Stadium instead of Yankee Stadium Saturday?
Yeah, I think we've already kind of dealt with that one. Back in, January, we thought about moving the game, and, I know Jack was certainly supportive of if we could have logistically done that. But, at that point, once that decision was made that we were going to play it, we've moved past that. We've made all the appropriations for this to be prepared for this game. So, we're really past it at this point. If you asked me in January, I think we had a conversation. Yeah, I would have liked it at home. But after that was vetted and it was decided to go to Yankee Stadium, I got other things on my list I got to deal with.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Good. Thank you.